Leani sucked in 2 deep breaths as the creature reached out a hand, her mind still in a bit of panic, but the creature did smile and spoke. "Hey, are you okay?" It asked slowly and in a tone that sounded concerned. "I am the one that should be falling over, considering the fact I can make both weapons that did and didn't yet exist in my world. You have literally given me the ability to do what most unknown could only dream of." Leani slowly willed herself back in control of herself, then took its hand and found herself quickly and effortlessly back to her feet. The sudden show of force from it unsettled more of her. As it was, the creature's strength was reinforced, but she swallowed hard. "I must apologize again. My conduct is unbecoming of a princess in my position. Do you have more questions?" she asked in a soft tone that willed it to mask her growing fear. This Jason creature shook its head and spoke in a calm and genuine tone she believed. "No, I'm going to help you and your nation. You have been good to me so far, but—" It suddenly pulled her in by their still interlocking hands and nearly growled the next word. "I am a free man and will not be made a slave to anyone, even the gods of this world. Okay, princess?" Its eyes were locked on her. The proximity and stance, along with the way it was holding her in place, caused her fear to run rampant in her mind that was making up theories as to why it said that of all things, and before she could form a counteroffer or response, the creature spoke again. "I am not sure as to me you all feel normal, but I have a feeling that you were going to treat me like a summoned beast." As it let her go, she instinctively took a few steps back, picking up the long sword of the raider, but it raised its hand to her as though to stop her from advancing her current plan. "Your reaction just now was all I needed. I am going to forgive you this one time, however. If you or anyone in your queendom even attempts to put me under their will by might or magic, I will not hesitate to destroy them than the nation. Is that clear?" Leani stared a bit bewildered, but mostly still terrified at the creature, and managed to fluster out a single word as her reaction. "How?" The Jason withdrew its hand and scratched at the back of its head. "Because I am a unknown, and I really like some regional works of literature and art where the people in the story get summoned, and in a fair few, slavery is a thing. Moreover, in a few, slavery even knocks on the main entity of a story, and they are enslaved. I figured me and you should lay the ground rules of enslaving me than suffer now over later." It said in a mixture of joy, weariness, excitement, and certainty, all of which did not dissuade her fear, but something about the way he smiled about it calmed her, a smile that was less of a clear threat and more of a promise, an agreement between the two. "I can't really complain about it now. Magic will not work on you, even if I wished it had, however. My preconceived notion that I would have to enslave you to guarantee your aid was wrong. You are clearly a person with a complete personality, unlike the monster I summoned in the castle I once had." She started but fell off. She barely escaped that night. "I will, however, apologize again for attempting to enslave you on arrival. Please forgive me, Jason," she said, and bowed a bit towards it. "No, not it, him." Jason smiled warmly. "Apology accepted. Besides, it's not every day I would get to meet a princess," he said in a gentle and reassuring tone. "Now why don't we go and find survivors, then see about going to meet the queen?" Leani nodded and walked out the door, going about calling out to people while Jason just calmly walked behind her. The better part of an hour of searching gave grim results. As of the once 100-person village, all that remained was 4 women and 2 men. Based on their appearance, they were a family unit, and the 3 eldest women showed signs of having fought. After a bit of an explanation on who Jason was and why it was following her, the 6 allowed him to administer first aid, which to her seemed like little more than the practices of a herbalist. But Jason claimed that now they would hopefully not get an infection, at least. Jason then turned to her after tying the last bandages he somehow created like his weapons. She couldn't even think of how or why it worked, as the item was neither weapon nor armor, yet it worked somehow. He smiled wide and then looked around. "Right, where do we go from here? The capital, I assume." Leani wanted an answer to how he was using his power, but shook her head. The capital was lost 3 months ago, and the siege to retake it has been going poorly. To see the queen, we will be going east to the fortress city of Shreki. That is where my mother is." She said, then looked around and thought over their search of the village, and recalled that most of the beasts were killed or ran off. "It will take a few days to cover the distance on foot." Jason thought it over, then smiled. "I think we will not have to walk. Let me try something," he said, then raised his hand to a clear space, and a carriage of both metal and other things appeared next to him. It had 4 doors on the sides and one in the front and back that looked like it was meant for cargo or something, then thought it over and summoned a book into his hands. This was the straw that broke Leani's resolve to glaze over issues with his power. "What the lower planes?" she screamed out of annoyance, anger, and exasperation. "Books, bandages, and magic tools that summon smoke are one thing, but this is a carriage. It is not even a weapon, let alone armor," she declared while throwing her arms around. "What are you talking about? I am using the powers as you set them up," Jason said, and had to take a step back as she glared at him, her fury at the brazen display of using the magic she gave him in a way she never imagined. But he swallowed and continued. "This is called a war carriage. I have driven one years ago and made the book as a refresher just to make sure I don't fuck this up. It is the basic transport vehicle that my military uses. As for the books, bandages, and magical tools, they can all be used by me to kill things, so it's not like my power is not working right. But how did you summon that? It's not armor or a weapon, it's a war carriage as you called it. Add to that we have no beast to pull the damn thing, and I can only assume it needs at least 6 to 8 beasts, which we can't even properly secure too, as there is no place to attach the beast harnesses. So explain to me how the lower planes you summoned it?" She basically screamed back at him, her patience for this and his words not calming her down at all. Jason seemed to think over the issue a bit, then turned and walked to the front side of the carriage, undoing the latch on one side close to the door, before walking around the whole thing to the other side and undoing the latch there too, before lifting the door up and out from the center and waved her over. As she walked, she noticed that the space for cargo she had assumed would be there was full of something, a complex construct of some kind, before Jason spoke up. "This is the war carriage's advanced fire and wind magic construct. It allows this thing to move without the need for beasts for riding and labor. It can get up to about 96800 yards an hour when fully loaded, or 123200 yards an hour when it is not loaded up. It needs about half a barrel of oil to run off and can go for 880000 yards on that." He looked up to her. Leani felt her blood run cold again. This carriage she was looking at, it could go farther than a rider on horseback. Not just farther, but also it could carry more. Her mind wondered as she looked over to the glass that she could see looking inside. The 8 of them will be a bit cramped, but they could all fit. "Your army uses them as basic transports," she said as she walked over to Jason, but he then spoke more. "As for why I can summon it, my people sometimes use it as a weapon tower. Add to that I can run over someone with it, and it provides protection to those inside. So to me it is both weapon and armor," he said with a smile which made her head hurt at the idea that he was ferocious enough to simply trample his enemies with this thing. "So you are skilled enough to make anything you can think of that is usable as a weapon by you, because that is how I set up my spell," she said half-heartedly, and watched as he smiled and nodded. Her mind went into autopilot as she started to figure out what the hell that meant for him and how to handle this, and worse off, she would not be able to warn her mother as they would reach the city today.